Welcome to the Tearing It Up podcast. I'm your host, Taryn. We'll be tearing it up, tearing it down, and tearing it apart, dissecting all things related to those who deviate from the standard. From leaders of their industry to leaders of mediocrity, and maybe a gear review or two thrown in. We shoot the shit and let the conversations flow, so if that's not your style, this may not be for you. Otherwise, listen in. Hope to light a fire in you somehow.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, I'm excited for this conversation because I think it's going to be fun and a little bit different. You know, we often talk about with folks from the core outdoor industry, and we are, expanding out of that. We've had guests on in the early days, not in the industry, or recently in the trades, and again, just kind of in athletes, like I said, expanding out of just core outdoor. That's still a huge part of us, but mostly we want to share stories like women doing things out of the stereotypical kind of standard path, right? And I think Rebecca, who we have with us today, has a great story and is on a journey kind of outside of that path, but very much still in a traditional path and took a traditional quote unquote path, but now has got this awesome business that her and her husband are running out of the Virgin Islands. So I was connected with Rebecca through Hillary, my good friend. If you guys have been listening to the podcast, you've heard Hillary on a couple times. She spent a year and some change in the Virgin Islands, and that's where she met Rebecca and her husband and was introduced to their awesome business called Tropless. And I have to give this disclaimer now that Rebecca sent me some Tropless, and I have not had the chance to try it yet. And I had this whole plan today that I was going to, this idea from Hillary, was going to make a smoothie with it today. I went to the gym this morning. I've been working on the computer since, and it's oh yeah, I'll drink a smoothie from Tropless. And we have weather coming in, winter's hitting again, and I'm cold. I have a beanie on, double layer. So I was last thing I want to do right now is drink a frozen drink. So I felt so bad. Man, I really wanted to try it in this form, because that's what's so cool, which we'll dive into about her product, is that it is not just for alcoholic beverages. It can be used in many different ways. So with that, I'm going to turn it to Rebecca, and I'm going to ask you, Rebecca, where are you physically in the world right now as we record?
So I am physically in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And just in case any of your listeners are not familiar with where the U.S. Virgin Islands are, so we are just about 40 miles east of Puerto Rico. So, and the U.S. Virgin Islands is technically 4 islands we are a U.S. territory. So there's St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, and Water Island. And I am physically on St. Thomas right now.
I want to go so bad. I was so bummed. Hillary's there for a whole year. I was of course I'll be able to figure out, making a trip. Maybe it'll be towards the tail end of her time there. And I didn't make it happen. But I know she still has a lot of connections and things there, and is always willing to go back and whatnot. So it's just fun to explore places where someone who either has been there themselves a lot and knows the area, or people there. So it is still on the list to come see you guys. Rebecca.
Please come visit. And I also just want to thank you for having me on your podcast. I am totally a Tearing It Up fan. I'm a fan of the podcast, and everything that you are doing with this podcast really resonates with me. And I think it is really cool that today we have this connection between the Virgin Islands and Caribbean climate and the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest. So that is also just broadens the horizons and the scope of this podcast, and so it shows that you have no boundaries. So
yes, exactly.
It's funny when you say that there's weather coming in. So when I hear weather coming in, I start thinking about hurricanes. But I don't think that's what you're talking about. So
not quite.
Different
High
weather.
winds are definitely a part of it, but they will bring snow, apparently, a couple feet or a few feet. Who knows what will happen? But yeah, that's funny. I could see that. I have your website up now too, so it's kind of scanning through all the tropical videos in the background, and that's yep. I can see where the weather's oh yeah, batten down the hatches, but it's gonna be a warm one.
Yeah. Yeah, we are definitely in the Virgin Islands. We are in the land of sunshine. So it is sunshine, beaches, blue water. But also keeping in the theme, I think, with your podcast and so much of the outdoor activities and lifestyle, there's a whole lot of that in the Caribbean as well. It's just a little bit different than snowmobiling.
Yeah.
So it is more diving, snorkeling, paddleboarding, and that is, people will always ask me, because I've not lived in the Virgin Islands my whole life. I've been in the Virgin Islands for 5 years. But what are some of the biggest things that are unique about living in the Virgin Islands? And one of the best things is the outdoor life. So it is hiking, it is water activities, it is being able to just do whatever you want to do, but being able to do it on a beach.
I love that. And that is definitely a part of my soul that I don't get to like actually explore often, is that like sunny beach water side. I moved to the mountains kind of away from the salt water, but I very much like love those water activities, being in the sun, as long as it's not like too hot, but and on the beach. And that's also like, why Hillary thought that we would have this great connection, because like what Tropless is also based off of, like the health benefit, not, I guess it's a healthier alternative to drink mixes, cocktail mixes. And then also you and your husband both have, a active background and interest in your life. And again, a lot of us here at the podcast listeners and whatnot, it's like you're active in some way. That's part of who you are, is being active. So it's like we can always make these connections. Again, we've been in like the core outdoor world, but like overall, it's like just women getting out and being active and living these like healthier kind of lifestyles, also while being able to have some fun too. So you mentioned you've been in the Virgin Islands for 5 years. Will you tell us a little bit about your background, like where you kind of came from and how you guys got to the Virgin Islands?
Sure. So I am originally from South Jersey, so right outside of Philadelphia. That's where I grew up. I then moved to Baltimore to go to college and stayed in Baltimore and in Maryland until my husband and I moved to St. Thomas 5 years ago. So I am a physician. So I did my medical school. I did undergrad, medical school, residency, all of my training in Baltimore. I am a rheumatologist. So I'm a board certified internist, did all my training in internal medicine, but then did specialty training in rheumatology. And just in case anyone in your audience is not familiar with rheumatology as a subspecialty, it is the study of mostly autoimmune diseases and autoimmune conditions, but almost universally, all of our conditions involve the immune system and the musculoskeletal system. So rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, sarcoidosis, vasculitis, those are just a few of the many conditions that I treat. So both my husband and I had very busy, wonderful careers in Baltimore. I was at a large academic center, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, where I did my training and was on faculty, seeing patients and also doing clinical research. And my research interest is in exercise, nutrition, and muscle, specifically in inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. My husband is not in medicine, but is in the security industry and had a business as well. So life is good. We're thinking we're never leaving here. Everything is fine. Baltimore is lovely. We had a boat. We love being on the water. The Chesapeake Bay is a fantastic place to go boating in the East Coast. So life is good. So we have vacationed in the Caribbean for probably 20 years. So it was part of our annual vacation, usually in the doldrums of winter in Baltimore when it's cold and gray. We would come to the Virgin Islands, specifically to St. John. And I absolutely loved it. So that became part of our annual trip. So we were vacationing here for a very long time. And then one time, through a series of serendipitous events, I became connected with an orthopedic surgeon in St. Thomas. And he's been down here for about 10 years. And he said, "Hey, Rebecca, you know what? We really need rheumatology here." So as an orthopedic surgeon, he said, look, I'm doing all of these surgeries on people who have these joint diseases. And I know you have all these fancy ways to treat them now. It's not like it was 20 years ago. We can do better for these patients, but there's no rheumatologist in the Virgin Islands. And I said, that's super interesting. And you definitely need a rheumatologist, but that's not going to be me. I'm at a big academic center. Life is good. I'm in Baltimore. This is what we're going to do. And then I paused and I thought about it. And I said, why was my knee-jerk response, that's not going to be me? Why couldn't it be me? Why shouldn't it be me? And that answer did not come immediately by any means, but it started the conversation and it opened the door. And then fast forward probably a good year after that initial conversation and some back and forth, ultimately, my husband and I decided that, yes, it could be me, it should be me, and it should be us in terms of making a change. It was a time in his career as well with his business where he was ready to make a change. So he sold his business. And I accepted the position down here in St. Thomas within this practice. I maintained my affiliation with Johns Hopkins, which has been wonderful, and I still do today, which is great. So I still have that connection. And we said, we are going to make a move. We are going to make a change. And if it doesn't work, we can always change again. And here we are 5 years later, still in the Virgin Islands, and really, really grateful for this opportunity and all the experiences that we've had.
I love that story because before we started recording, we kind of were talking about an episode that I had where we talked about age and things. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we talk about often on the podcast with just like not letting age be a factor of for you to like not do something new, like being comfortable, like I'm too old to do this or to make a change or things like that. And like you were established in your life, in your career, and your husband as well. And you were still able to look at this opportunity and say, hey, why not? Why not make a change or and try something different? Because like you said, if it doesn't work out, we can change again. And that's what I like to try to keep in the back of my mind when it comes to taking on new opportunities. It's like, yeah, it's scary to do that sometimes and to make the change, but if it doesn't work out, like this doesn't have to be the end all. And obviously there's life decisions that, are far deeper and go beyond that. But for things like taking a new job opportunity or moving somewhere new, like if that opportunity arises and like I said, if you try it out and it doesn't work out, like, well, you can start back over, go back to where you were or try somewhere new again. So I love that you guys like took that opportunity and did it together too. Like, nope, we both need this and want this. So that's awesome.
Definitely the non-traditional career path. And I have certainly, we have embraced the non-traditional career path. And I think that really, in many ways, it should be the norm. It shouldn't be even considered non-traditional anymore. No one's path is linear. Yeah. It's just life is not linear. And so the idea that we should force our life into a linear path, it doesn't make sense because then we just put this unnecessary stress on ourselves, or we make decisions that we think we're supposed to instead of where our heart is drawn or maybe where our passion is. And also, the next step of this was, so my husband sold his business as we moved here, and we knew we wanted to start something new. We knew that it wasn't retirement for him, and I knew that although I wasn't going to be having the academic part of my my medicine career, so I'm not doing clinical research anymore, but I knew there was another element of something to contribute to health that we could do. And so this is where Tropless was born. So Tropless, which is our brand and our product, is our healthy cocktail mixer. So it is a cocktail mixer, so it does not have alcohol in it. We have a margarita and a mojito. The base is coconut water and it is flavored with organic extracts, and it is ultra low sugar because it is sweetened only with plant-based sweeteners. And so the birthplace of it is here in St. Thomas, and it was born out of our experience of making this big life move and making big career changes. But most importantly, when you do come, Taryn, to the Virgin Islands, because you are going to come,
yes,
we are going to take you actually to the British Virgin Islands, to the Soggy Dollar Bar, which is infamous around the world. The Soggy Dollar Bar is called Soggy Dollar because you can only get to it by boat, which means you have to swim in from your boat. There's no dock there. All of your dollars are soggy. But it is the birthplace. It is the birthplace of the painkiller. And if you've never had a painkiller, it is one of probably the most famous drinks in the Virgin Islands overall. But that is the birthplace, and it is delicious. But it is 1 million calories, all of which are sugar. Yeah. and so literally sitting on a beach, sipping a painkiller or two or so, and saying the equivalent, this is so lovely, this is so delightful, but how this is totally negating my workout from this week and all of my healthy eating and my meal prep. And this is not helping inflammation in my body with all of this sugar. There's got to be another way that we could enjoy something that is tropical and delicious, but not have the sugar or have all of the artificial chemicals and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so that was the inspiration behind creating a new business. Because, as we were thinking about, we want to create a new business, we had all kinds of ideas, but we thought this was it embodied, it's fun. It solves a problem that we have, which is we like sweet, delicious things, but we don't want all the sugar and we don't want all the garbage either. Mm-hmm. So I don't want a bunch of chemicals or things that are going to be just as bad as processed sugar in my quote unquote low calorie or low sugar beverage. So that is the birth of Tropless and how we ended up here. So as non-traditional as you get.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, definitely can't wait to go to the Soggy Dollar. That's my dream. I mean, as a child, there was a couple times we fished a lot in the Puget Sound, and my dream was always taking the boat to a restaurant, but we never got to do it too often because we just fished and went home. And the one time we tried, our propeller went out halfway to the restaurant and we had to get towed back to the marina. But I have since been able to do it a couple times. But point being is that is my favorite way to show up to a restaurant is via boat or anywhere that you aren't driving into. There's some places in the winter I haven't been to, but they're around snowmobile in only, things like that. I think those are just the funnest places to go, and it's just a story behind it getting in there. So I cannot wait to go to the Soggy Dollar. I am just manifesting it now. But I also don't think I've actually ever had a painkiller because I love sweet treats and things, but sweet drinks I can only have a couple. But even in my 20s and on tropical vacations and stuff, I don't know. I've done, I think the closest to a painkiller is just a Long Island iced tea. It just reminds me, it's all the crazy mixtures, but I think now it just scares me seeing a painkiller, no way, because I will be sick instantly from, like you said, all the sugar and everything. And, you mentioned, right, the whole point, solving a problem. That's how most successful businesses are created, because they are solving a problem. So you guys are solving a problem you have, and that is wanting to enjoy these sweet drinks without all the garbage in them. And there's some people out there who have a hard stance of well, you shouldn't be drinking at all. And this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm wondering if as you came up with this and your whole idea of creating a low sugar drink mixer and all the getting rid of all the artificial stuff, as you're telling people about it and stuff, did you catch a lot of flack from people of just just don't drink and your problem solved, that were not supportive of your idea?
So the fact that Tropless is a cocktail mixer without alcohol was extremely intentional. And it was for exactly that reason. Because, at the end of the day, alcohol is, from a medical standpoint, I can't tell you that alcohol has any health benefits at all. At all. It has zero. So it has zero. So as we were creating Tropless and creating this vision, we did not want something that had alcohol in it. If you choose to use it as a mixer, so right now we have a mojito and a margarita. We have a painkiller and a pina colada, which are almost ready, but not quite out for production yet. But we have a mojito and a margarita. So if you choose to make it as a cocktail, you mix 3 ounces of the margarita mix, 1.5 ounces of tequila, squeeze some lime, you're good to go. The mojito, it's 3 ounces of mix, 1.5 ounces of rum, and then a couple ounces of club soda for some bubbles. But you don't have to use the tequila or the rum. You can make it as a mocktail. You can make it as something that feels luxurious. It feels like a treat. It feels special. Or it feels like you're celebrating, which is in many ways when people are reaching for a cocktail, that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. They want to unwind. They want to relax. They want to sit and stare at the water and just be grateful for where they are and have something that makes them feel special. And that feels like a special occasion. But it doesn't need alcohol. Heck no. And that was extremely intentional, especially because right now the big thing in the world of cocktails in particular is the ready to drink cocktails, right? Mm-hmm. So you have a can, you crack it open, it's got the alcohol in it and the mixer, and it's just easy breezy. But then you don't have any control over that. And so we were very intentional about making this a mixer that can be made as a healthy mocktail, that you can do you can be creative with it. You could add fruit to it. You can zhuzh it up however you want in terms of bubbles and so on. And you can make it a cocktail, but you absolutely don't have to. And in fact, we really encourage the mocktail and being creative with it. And Hillary's helped us out with that a lot too.
I love it. And so hence that what I was talking about in the beginning, everybody, of like using it to make a smoothie. Like again, Hillary had suggested for me, because the base is coconut water from both the flavors that you have available now, as well as like, some other flavors, but like coconut water being that base, and coconut water in a smoothie is great. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And when you and I talked prior to like recording, we talked largely about that in the mocktail, and how that is also a big trend right now in the world, is like sober curious folks is what everyone's referring to, like having the option for a mocktail. And you don't have to be just dead sober, totally off the wagon, not drinking at all, but there are still times, and I've mentioned this plenty of times, that I just that day or after one cocktail or prior to a cocktail, like I'd like to start with a mocktail or finish off with a mocktail, because I want to there, you mentioned, just having a drink. It's something in our brains, and I think just from the society we've had, of when it feels like a celebration, a treat, a reward, having like a fancy little cocktail. When I'm sitting at home working from home, sometimes I put my iced coffee in a stemless wine glass. Sometimes it's just sparkling water. Just something about that just makes you feel kind of like fancy. And so when you can have the option for a non-alcoholic beverage, but zhuzhing it up like with something like Tropless, I feel like is just an awesome option to have. And you don't feel like you're either left out of the party, or again, it just makes you inside feel a certain way. And I know a lot of us gals like want a fancy drink, but you don't always want to have the alcohol. So the fact that there's the ability here to do that with your drink mixes is just an awesome option.
Yeah. And the coconut water was intentional also because we're in the tropics and everyone's sweating, so you're dehydrated all the time. And so you have electrolytes with coconut water that are going to be hydrating. And then you just don't have the sugar, because I've definitely been out where I said, okay, I want a mocktail, and I'll tell the bartender, make me a great mocktail. But what's the first thing they put in it? They put in simple syrup into it. Yeah. So now automatically there's all of this sugar into it. And now I'm feeling stressed about that. So
Yeah.
I would rather, if I'm going to have all the sugar, I'd rather it be the piece of chocolate cake. I don't want to drink it in my mocktail. So if I have to trade. So
exactly. Like I said, I prefer sweet treats. I still do have sweet drinks, but like I said, so it hits me a little bit differently that I could go to town on all the sweet treats, but like a sweet drink sometimes is just like one and done. But also, because when I think about that, I'm like, well, no, I still want to, have room for that sweet treat later. So like, let's not waste my my sugar taste buds or stomach like on the sweet drink. So, well, it's hard to start any product-based business. You having to figure out, go through samples and everything like that. I imagine, obviously, creating a drink mixer like this could be a little bit easier than, starting an apparel business and sourcing the material and trying to sew something up, especially if you don't have those skills. But going to market with a food product seems to me like it'd be much more difficult. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your path to starting, finding the ingredients or the recipes rather in the kitchen with yourselves, and how you started to kind of get that out into the world and what that journey was like.
So getting back to our non-traditional career paths. So as I mentioned before too, neither my husband nor I have a background in beverage development. So we do not have a background he has a background in marketing for sure with his previous business, but neither one of us has a food or beverage background. So we started from square one. And I think this is also in speaking to many of the themes of your podcast, which is dive into things that you don't know. Mm-hmm. It's a great time to learn. We have no business at this stage of our lives deciding to go into an arena that neither one of us has training or background in, but we had a cool idea. We're really excited about it, and we were willing to learn. And also, I think that's an area where when you jump into a something that you don't know anything about, you actually have the opportunity to do something really cool. Because if you know so much about it, you're going to adhere to everybody else's rules and everybody else's standards. But you can actually be a disruptor when you don't know what you're doing because you kind of don't know better. And you're going to make mistakes and things are going to go wrong and you're going to have to fix it. And that's going to happen no matter what. But just because you don't have the background in it doesn't mean don't do it. It means you actually should do it because you're probably going to do it better than anybody else. And you're going to have a really cool idea. So with that, literally this started in our kitchen. So it started with the conversation and with the idea of how do we make something low sugar and taste delicious. And we were ordering organic extracts online to start the flavors, to try to combine the flavors. We were testing every margarita that we could get our hands on to try to really dive into, because it seems like it should be very easy. It's not. To get the right proportion of the flavor extracts, to work with the plant-based sweeteners. And literally this started in our kitchen, getting boxes delivered from Amazon, making, just sample after sample after sample. I would come home from work and Nick would say, try this or this, A or B, B or C, C or D. And we just keep, is this too much lime? Is this too much sugar? Is this too much orange? And so finally, once we got the recipes to a place where they were not embarrassing, then, and they were quite good, we then hired a food scientist. Because although we were super excited to get into an arena that we didn't know, there were things we knew we didn't know that needed to be done right. And so this is where a food scientist can be extremely helpful to make sure that your ingredients are correct, to make sure that especially when you get to the point of packaging it, that there's a certain temperature it has to be, make sure that there's no microbes in it, all of these important scientific things as to how your food and beverages are safe and healthy and delicious. So we then hired a food scientist and continue to work on the recipes together with her. She's been outstanding and really, really helpful. And in the meantime, we were also working on our brand. So, of course, the brand is the product, but it's also the imagery behind it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we put a lot of thought into the artwork and for our brand of Tropless. And so we really wanted it to invoke several feelings in people when they see the packaging. We want them to feel strong, powerful, confident, like they are making great decisions. And so the imagery on our packaging is a woman, and she's embracing the universe, and she's on a beach, and that was also very intentional with beautiful tropical colors. So we were working on the packaging as well, and the artwork, working on the packaging itself, because your cocktail mixer has to go in something. So that was a whole nother lesson in packaging.
Yeah.
We wanted to avoid plastic as much as possible. And so this started down a path of investigating different ways. What is going to hold our mixer? So is it going to be glass? Well, that's really heavy. That's not so great for a boat. If you're going to be on or carrying in your beach bag, you don't want glass on the beach. There's aluminum, which could be possible. That's recyclable, which is great. There's the Tetra Paks that are somewhat recyclable, but ultimately we decided on our packaging is a pouch. So it's a resealable pouch. And that was intentional because it can be recycled and it's collapsible. So it's 16 ounces. So it's small enough that it is not going to take up much space in your cooler. And when it's finished, you can just roll it up and it's going to take up no space at all. But it's also resealable, so it can be used for multi-serve. So you don't have to use all 16 ounces at once. So it's sealable. But that was a whole nother lesson in what are you going to put it in?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You have this great thing, but you got to put it.
Yeah, that's what I mean with like getting into the food and beverage side. There's so much more it seems to think about, rather than like, cool, I made this awesome like shirt or pair of pants. And nowadays with packaging and trying to use less plastic, all that, a lot of brands are just throwing that in a paper mailer and sending it on their way or something. So the packaging is like become less of an issue for that. But you have to worry about all the like just food safe, all sorts of different things there. Like a whole other story in itself. I love that it's resealable because, you mentioned the pouches are 16 ounces, and also that it only takes 3 ounces is what the recipes call for a cocktail or mocktail.
Yep. So it's about 5 servings per pouch. So, and it depends on your palate. So if some people like it sweeter, they're going to use a little more mixer. If they like it less sweet, they're going to use less, but somewhere around 5.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're taking this out to using it at a gathering or whatever, it's like, obviously, yeah, if you're going to make multiple cocktails, you're going to go through probably like a few pouches, but still, like you said, you're out actually on an outing, maybe having a cocktail like here, and then you're going to make one like later down on the next stop or something. Lightweight, love it. And did you guys also the packaging? So obviously you all know it'll all be linked in the show notes and whatnot, but I'm looking at it right now on the side of my screen here. And I don't know if it's knowing a little bit of the backstory and like where you guys are based out of and everything, but I just feel like you hit a home run with just the name and packaging and everything. It can envision so much. Like you said, knowing a little bit of the background, like Tropless, like first of all, adorable because the woman's holding like her top, so like topless and like her back turned, and then but the trop for like tropical, less like I imagine like, less sugar, less additives. And it's just, it definitely looking at it would make me feel, okay, that has my attention. Just seems like a lot of intentionality behind it.
Absolutely. And to get back to something you said earlier with just there's so many elements, especially in the food and beverage world of, you want to do it right. And like I said, having no knowledge going into it, but for any of your audience that is interested in starting a business in this arena, I think one of the cool things about it too that we learned as well, which is which is that there is a community around starting small businesses, and certainly in the food and beverage world as well. And at the end of the day, we really can actually all help each other because the world is big enough for all of these cool ideas and these cool products. And it's so much more fun if there's other people who are launching businesses around the same time. We've actually made some great connections, even here in the Virgin Islands, with some other small business owners who are launching food and beverage products. And it's been a great experience to be going through this together with them because none of us have great expertise in it, but we all are having experience. And so if something doesn't go well, we can share it with other people so we can all help to move our businesses forward, but take some of that stress off of it. So I don't want it to sound like it's a scary thing for anybody who's interested in going down this path, but definitely embrace the community of small business owners because we're all in it together.
Absolutely.
We are here to help each other. So
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's just like, so there's enough room for everything, and also dropping the ego in anything that you do, just knowing that you're not going to be for everybody. And that can be a hard thing to learn. Like nobody likes to be, like disliked or not have their product or service or something. Like it can be a hard hit to like get the negative like feedback or just like, nope, like to get a no. But there's no way you're going to please everybody. And it's just going to be more work and awful for your like mentality and emotions and everything like that if you're only trying to like please everybody, because like you're gonna turn around and make this person happy but now this person isn't, and ultimately like what is it, like have you lost your own values and mission now too? And because starting out in a business or anything, like I said, can be hard to just like forge ahead and not listen to all the noise. And there can be a fine line, right, between listening to the like feedback that is just like critical feedback that you really can take in and say, yeah, that does make sense. I can, maybe change a little bit of this or that, versus just the negative feedback that is simply like this person like hated it. And that's what it's so funny to me about reading reviews of like anything, clothing, restaurants, whatever. And people are just like, oh, this sucked. And it's like, well, you got a fucking pizza with pineapple and you hate pineapple, like, so of course you didn't like the Hawaiian, just stupid shit like that is what people review. Like, this didn't fit and I ordered it, like just so dumb. So it's like we have to remember the context into which people are giving us our feedback. And yeah, like I said, look inward first too, check in with yourself, make sure like, okay, is there any piece of critical like advice out of here, or is it simply just like, I'm not going to please this person ever?
that is such an awesome piece of advice. I absolutely just love so much what you just said. And especially for anybody starting a business, they need to just put that on repeat, what you just said, because it is 100% true. And it's defining who is your audience. And at the end of the day, your audience is not the whole world. Mm-hmm. So and that was 100% something we had to be very clear about with Tropless as well, that we are really our team and our audience is people who, we always say, fit, focused, fun seekers. So these are people who care about what they put in your body. You care what you put in your body. You want to have fun, but you don't want the sugar. And that's not going to be everybody. Some people are going to say, I don't care about the sugar. That's awesome. That's great. Have the full sugar painkiller. Totally fine. And we're probably never going to make them happy with our product. So, but for our audience, we want to provide something that doesn't exist in the market. But you're right. It will not, you're never going to be everything for everybody. And I just love that so much.
Yeah. And it's definitely something I have to remind myself of often. And I think that it's just, again, anytime you get that, like you're hit with resistance, you have to kind of dig deeper inward sometimes, because for a lot of people it's hard to take, but said, you just gotta remember, like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like me. You don't have to whatever. But like I said, it takes
Yeah.
some work and reminding for me all the time. Anytime I kind of feel like I'm hitting a wall and like something's not working, and it's just like, well, who am I going to find my people type thing? And you have to remember, well, I do have my people. So like, it's fine. But yes, and you'll find more along the way. It just takes time, right? And again, something we mention often on the podcast is like that instant gratitude and like success that we all look for, because that's the messaging we get on the things we see in like social media and everything, where it looks like this person just came out of nowhere and is a success. Of course, those things happen, but most of the time you aren't seeing the years of effort behind things, the full-time job and the side hustle and how long they've been doing it or thinking about it and all that. And then you see it when it's a success. You're like, what the hell? Why can't this happen for me? It's like, well, like, have you been doing the thing, like digging into it at all, or just hoping that a break happens? And we all want that to happen eventually. But yeah, again, just like removing ourselves from sometimes what's happening on our screens and just doing the work and focusing on what your internal mission is. But I love everything about Tropless and the audience that you are after. I think it's definitely fitting for myself and our audience. So I'm really excited to see the future like products and flavors that you guys come out with. I cannot wait to actually try mine. I was even thinking with the packaging and everything, I'm like, we were going out last, I don't know now, I guess it's been a couple of weekends almost, but there's this big chili cook-off that is about a 20-mile snowmobile ride. We just went on the road, so it was really easy, but this was definitely a day, because the snow conditions weren't great, that we were just going to be staying on the road, taking it easy, going to this one destination where we'd be hanging out for a couple hours. And of course, we were going to be having some drinks. And I was like, oh my God, I should bring the Tropless because it can fit in my tunnel bag on the sled. And then I was like, well, then I have to bring a mixer of some sort, whether I wanted to go NA or like alcohol. And there was a little more just logistics to it that I didn't have prepared in time because I was like working and not going to the store. But I was like, again, just the thought of how easy it is to throw the Tropless like in your bag or in somewhere like portable is awesome.
Yeah. And it doesn't take up much space once it's empty. So
yeah. And so I can't wait to definitely try it on the, like here in Tahoe in the summer on the lake and stuff, like out paddleboarding or something, just a little refreshing mix, or after like après. Tahoe's about après anything. So again, whether it's cocktail, mocktail, smoothie after the gym, like that's on the list.
I will say the vision of Tropless in a snowmobile like gives me chills. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
If this storm does anything at all, like I'm really hoping to get out in the next couple days, because I have not been out much at all this season. I will try my hardest to like bring it out there with me for sure, and make a little drink out there, and kind of depending on what the conditions are and if it will be conducive to like either just hanging out. But like I said, I'll have a mocktail version for sure too, which brings me to the smoothie concept here. Would I still use just the 3 ounces, or would I be using it as like my full base, like normal amount of liquid? Like I normally do 8 ounces of liquid in the smoothie I make. Would I use all Tropless, or kind of do a mix? Or again, probably depends on like your personal preference.
Yeah, so I would probably I would use probably still somewhere on the 3 ounce range for it, because it's really going to depend on how you want to flavor it. Because if you're going to blend it, so we have done especially the mojito, we have done frozen mojitos before, and it's fantastic. But you actually don't need as much. So it depends, because if you're doing it with ice and the ice melts, it's going to increase your volume. So then you may want a little bit more mix. So it's going to be highly variable with how you do it. So how you flavor it, and what else is in your smoothies.
Yeah, I'll definitely experiment. I'll start.
You just have to play with it.
Yeah, totally. So I am a little bit curious too, before we get out of here, let you go, how you started to kind of get Tropless out there, because you're on the Virgin Islands, and from what I've heard, it's hard to ship things in and out. So I've got to imagine being on this island, coming up with a product that obviously your main like audience, I guess, is not going to be right there. You want to get out of just the Virgin Islands. How did you start kind of getting it out there to people, and how does your distribution look now? Like, where can people find Tropless?
Yeah. So that has been another frontier as well. So currently we are on shelves in stores in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we are in all the major grocery stores in St. Thomas and in St. John. We're working on St. Croix. Now, when I say all the major grocery stores, that is, like 8. So it's not a huge number, but it is for our territory. So we were really happy to be on shelves in many of all of the grocery stores, and then some other specialty shops, both in St. Thomas and on St. John. We are not on shelves anywhere in the States right now. We are on Amazon. So we are available on Amazon, and we are available through our website. And so that has been another learning curve with getting onto Amazon and shipping through we have our website is a Shopify based website, which if any other small business owners will be very familiar with. And so we have a 3PL in the States who does the shipping for us from, I think they're in Tennessee, for our website specifically. So that is where people can get Tropless. So you can here in the Virgin Islands through our website or on Amazon. The next frontier is going to be in the States, but we would like to have our other 2 flavors, the painkiller and the pina colada, when we do launch and move into the States. But it certainly has been a lot of boots on the ground and sweat, really getting it certainly in stores here, but then also the social media piece. Mm-hmm. So that has to be now part of how you think about your business and your product, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. So, but it's actually been a really fun part of it too, because so we are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, TikTok maybe in the future, but it actually has been a really fun way to have some creativity with the product as well. So it's been a learning curve, but a really fun part of it too.
That sounds amazing. Are there any restaurants locally to you that use Tropless? I don't know if that would just be like obviously a little bit hard for them having to use like things in a little more bulk, but did you get into them or introduce it through restaurants or anything like that?
So we really have not gone down the road of restaurants, and clearly we are a tourist destination. So we have lots and lots of restaurants. But because so many of the restaurants, they're either looking for super low cost, high volume and speed with which they can make something, our product probably doesn't fit very well for them. There are some very either smaller bars or specialty places. There's an amazing art gallery here called 81C that has a bar and does these wonderful events with local artists and actually artists from around the world. But they do have a bar and they serve cocktails and mocktails, and we've done some Tropless events, and they've been very supportive as a sort of smaller venue, but a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful venue. Yes, you have to come to 81C when you come to St. Thomas too, to check out some of the amazing art. But we really have not pushed the restaurant angle, just because for most of the restaurants, I think they're going to be interested in either making their own cocktails or mocktails and specialty, which I completely understand. Right. And then I think the numbers probably just don't work for them, but that's okay. People still have margaritas at home all the time or on their boat or on the beach. So especially in a vacation environment, people are are in restaurants, but they're in so many other places too. So
yeah, and that makes a ton of sense for sure to be more of that direct to consumer. And again, when we talk to mostly like apparel companies or equipment at companies, right? And so the conversation often is like D2C, or is it like in like wholesale, things like that. So it's interesting to kind of learn the food and beverage side of it, especially with something like this where it's like, yeah, and what you mentioned is like a lot of restaurants, they're making their craft cocktails anyway. So when you go and say, I want a skinny margarita or something, right, then they are just freshly squeezing that lime and lemon and doing it with less sugar. So it's much easier and cost effective for them to do things that way. And like you said, your audience, what you're solving the problem for is like the people who you want to make it at home or you're taking it on the go. So it's like you aren't solving the problem for just low calorie, like quick, easy drinks for anyone to do in bulk. So well, I again, like, cannot wait to give my Tropless a try. It'll probably be sometime next week when the weather gets a little bit less wintry for sure. Although I did have a margarita the other night, so it's like obviously you can enjoy this without the tropical weather or anything. But I really wanted to try it in the smoothie first and try the NA route. But I know once I open it, I'm like, okay, I want to be sure that I'm gonna use it in a timely manner and don't let it like sit and go bad. So I want to have a plan of action. I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try this.
It's good for 2 weeks once you open it, and it's only because of the coconut water. So it's shelf stable when it's closed, but once you open it, the coconut water, you got 2 weeks.
Awesome.
But that's also why it's only 16 ounces, because how many times have I had some giant handle of margarita mix sitting in the back of my refrigerator for like 2 years?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
That you made one margarita and then you're unclear. Is this bad?
Yeah.
What is going to happen?
Which is a whole other like question of things in life when you're like, is this okay that it's been open for that long? And, like, it still is like, okay, like, I don't know if I should be ingesting that, but yeah. So no problem.
How far past the expiration date are you willing to test it?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, before we get out of here, I want to make sure, I know you've already told the audience like where they can find you and things, but if there's anything else you want to add, is there an expected date for the next 2 flavors, or anything else we should be watching out for? Anything at all you want to leave?
Sure. So I would just invite your audience to check us out on Instagram. We're at Tropless Cocktails, or our website, which is tropless.com. Yes, follow us. We would love that.
Absolutely.
We love this community. We love this community. We love everything that you guys, your audience is such a, they fit very well. So we really love this community. But in terms of the other 2 flavors, we are hoping in maybe the next 6 months or so.
Okay.
But I will certainly keep you posted on that. So, but start with a margarita and a mojito. And I think most importantly, what I would leave your audience with is just don't be scared to try new things. Even when you are in your 40s, 50s, or beyond. So there is no age limitation on trying new things. If it's something you're excited about and you're passionate about, there's no wrong direction for you then.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca, and sharing the story of Tropless and telling the audience all about it, and everyone out there. Like, by the time you've heard this, maybe I have finally had, hopefully, my Tropless, and you'll see some posts about it and whatnot. But keep your eyes out too for some fun recipes or cocktails that me and Hillary can also come up with, because like I said, I want to make a special like tearing it up little cocktail. And coming towards the end of winter, it is definitely closer than further away. All I'm thinking about is like summer and spring events and things. So Tropless has definitely been on my mind for, like I said, the après kind of cocktail. Like, it's just a thing to have after a bike ride, a hike, paddling, anything like that. So I'm really excited to like throw that in the mix of some fun events I have in my brain here swirling around. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taryn. I really, really enjoyed the conversation and appreciate you.
Yes, you are welcome. And thank you again. So everybody, don't forget to check the show notes so you can follow Tropless, check out their website, give it a try, no matter what you're trying to make with it, alcoholic or not, smoothies, whatever. And stay tuned as always for next week's episode. Thanks for hanging along, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and would do us a huge favor, since we don't have any sponsors or anything like that, and would rate and review us on whatever platform it is you use, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever it is. And if you're listening and downloading just through the website, tearingituppodcast.com, leave comments. We'll definitely engage back with you. And on social media right now, we're just on Instagram. Tearing It Up Podcast is the handle. Like the post, share the post, comment on the post, whatever it is you got. Show us your love so we just stay relevant and show up in the rankings at all. So again, rate and review, please. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.